Yo, it's ODB, our lifestyle podcast. Want to give you guys a little bit of perspective in what I do each week. This August is going to be the 7th year. It'll be the 7th anniversary that Mike and I have been doing the podcast. And again, we always want to thank everyone that has supported us via listening. Whether you download it, you stream it, you come by, you slap hands, you share photos with us, you help us with the intel. That's much appreciated. So I'm always looking for ways to try to share new content. And this week I'm putting together episode 289. So hopefully I'll turn this around pretty quick, but I'll kind of show you what I'm kind of looking at. Now, I am trying to organize the madness here. I constantly go out to my shop and I'm digging up magazines, and I'll bring some in because there'll be like a feature that I want to showcase. Maybe it's a guest that I want to have on, that I want to do a little bit of research. And the magazines, as the followers know, or the listeners, they play a huge part. So I can kind of go back and I can look at show coverage. I can figure out dates. I can figure out, what issue, issue 25, I think it was, of Street Trucks, Paul's truck, doing some intel, for upcoming episodes, and just guests that I've had maybe on the list even a year or two, folks that we've touched base with. So the magazines play a huge role. I've got stacks constantly. Luckily, my wife can put up with my madness. Now, my computer that I use is a Mac. I use Mac at home, for those that don't know, and it's just easier for me, based upon, having used Mac now for almost 20 years. God, going back to 2004 is really when I started using it. It's my, choice to use this OS operating system. And what I have found, when I edit, I can edit way quicker on this MacBook, a MacBook. It doesn't matter if it's a Pro or not, but I can edit way faster, even though I have a Magic Trackpad over there. This thing right here helps me tremendously. So that's one thing that I would tell people, like, if you're kind of figuring out whatever your workflow is, and how often, or I guess what the reoccurrence is that you want to produce, content, whether it's video or whatever, you want to kind of figure out what your plan of attack is going to be with the type of equipment that you're going to use. I listened to the Brian and Frank podcast, right? So we gave them a shout out on 288, and they talked a little bit about their different methods to their madness when it comes to video. And I know, like, for instance, Frank had mentioned, he was still on 1080p, whereas Brian was on, like the 4K stuff, and they were talking about their mindset on how quick they pull the content off the car. They don't want to lose it and stuff like that. So I totally get it. When you get into producing something, whether it's an audio show or video, or just even social media content, you got to kind of figure out what's going to work for you, and everything is a little bit different, right? There's no easy answer. Now, I'll show you in a minute. I actually just downloaded the new Audacity. It's like, I would rarely ever update it because I don't want to mess things up. I don't want to alter what I already know. But I will show you. A lot of people ask, like, what we record with, and this is a Zoom recorder, okay? And you can look these up. Now, this is probably an old school method at this point, right? Because now, fast forward, I've told people before, you fast forward almost 7 years, and there's way different ways to record your audio, whether you're on site or you're doing it like we are. There's folks that use FaceTime, I'm sure. I had looked into years ago using Skype and things like that, and now there's even services like, I think the Future Mini Truckers, they use like Anchor, which makes things a lot easier. So I always encourage, figure out what's going to work for you. Now, I put these here before I started. Here's our OLP, the G.I. Joe theme. You guys know, if you listen to the podcast, I love some G.I. Joe stuff. We don't talk about it a lot, but I always wanted to do this, and it was pretty cool that we did it with an OBS truck. I mentioned Adam the Woo. I always enjoy watching his videos. They're pretty raw. They're not overly edited, which is cool. And I think, he's living his dream. And I had sent a self-addressed stamped envelope, and I finally got my 3 stickers from Adam. So shout out to Adam the Woo. And then this is funny. So I was going to title this video maybe Workload Task Force. But this is a pin that someone gave me many years ago, or the company that I worked for 20 years. And being the pack rat, of course, it's in my stuff. But what I do each week is I go into the previous week's episode, and I know that there's the intro. I know, rest in peace to my dad. I've got my dad's intro, you guys hear. And then typically there's going to be the non-copyrighted music that's going to be here. And then you're going to have the intro, which, typically I'll leave in there. I'll switch it up. It's a lot of times us giving a shout out to Scraping the Coast and Mini Truck Showdown. What I did today, literally, and this is maybe where I got the idea to do this video, is when I downloaded the new version of Audacity, which I prefer for my workflow. This was a cool thing. I used to have to go up here and click on something. Now, when you hover up and you see that kind of line right there, that little hand appears, and now I can move this super simple. So I know I always title this, that's my audio there, ODB. I'll come down here, and this is Mike's, okay? What I have to do is, generally, if you guys are listeners, I kind of add in, sometimes bait Mike in at the beginning, and I'll get some funny audio. And I didn't always do that before. Now I do sometimes, and I'll leave that in here. But basically, what I have to do is I have to then go kind of line these tracks up, and I have to make sure that when they go from this code to that next, best way I can say it's kind of layered. It's going to be stair-stepped all the way down. I have to make sure that it kind of flows. That's part of the editing process. So, I appreciate it. And thank you so much to our title sponsor. So I know, typically, I see this audio right here. What I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to move this out, right? And I know when Mike and I recorded last night, we had a little bit of, joking around right here. But I know right here is where the audio is going to start. So a lot of times what I'm going to do is, like, let's say I know I'm not going to use this audio. I'm going to use the quick keys and basically go and mute that. And you saw that disappeared. My whole process that I do is I go through this, and I'm going to undo this. I go through the podcast literally and clean up anything that I hear that I don't like. There's natural tendencies that we kind of have. And one of them, if you ever start doing podcasting, it's kind of funny. You'll see in the audio, those lines, you'll kind of see those little things where, like, people, they'll have a natural tendency when they pause. They'll have that little, sound they'll make. Everybody kind of has different things. Some people have nervousness things. I know, like I just said, that's a pause word for us. I know by me listening back to this audio for now, 7 years in editing almost, I've picked up on things, and I can see where, like, news broadcasters and people that are, in front of the cameras a lot, when they're constantly analyzing what they're doing, it allows for them, hopefully, to, get better and not say, well, okay, yeah, and when it goes back to when I was in training many years ago, at the company that I worked for, I was in training, I don't know, 3, 4, between 3 and 5 years. We constantly were getting feedback on, hey, this is what you did good, this is what you got to do better. So I try to think of that every week. And I do also during the week when I'm thinking about, hey, what are we going to do when Mike and I record? A big part of what I want to do is I want to have a show that flows really well. I want to have a show that keeps people engaged. Obviously, with the trivia, a lot of people have said that they like that, even though sometimes I give Mike, I think, too many clues. But all of those things kind of go into it, and it's nothing wrong with, podcasters. There's millions of podcasts out there, I'm sure, that if they don't do that, I mean, that's totally fine. But what I found is if I can make it as enjoyable as possible, more likely people are going to want to come back, listen, or they're going to say, hey, the guy's engaging. Now, when it comes to the interviews, obviously I have a way, and I'm not going to cover that today. I have a way that I kind of sequence the questions, and many of you know, it's kind of like, hey, tell us about yourself. How'd you get involved with cars and stuff? All of that, there's a method to the madness there, and I'll share that in the future. But basically, what I constantly do, a lot of people will ask, how much time do you have involved? Well, you got to think through the podcast. You have to schedule a guest, and that's one of the hardest parts of getting them on the phone. Then you have to record. So this is Mike and I, we did, 20, 25 minutes. And then what I do, part of my workflow is I'll literally go back and listen to every second of it. Okay. The reason being is I might be working over here on something else, but I'm listening and I might hear something that goes, you know what? That was like when, Mike, the door opened at Mike's house or something, right? Apparently no necks were broken, right?
Definitely no.
And you can kind of hear right there.
Yep.
A lot of times when there's a transition from one person speaking to the, Mike, a lot of that is it's just it's like a little noise or a sound that you make, and it's kind of annoying to me.
Definitely no.
So a lot of times what I'll do is I'm going to go in here, like I said a minute ago, use my quick keys. I'm also going to do it down here, and then you'll also learn when you're editing that this pause right here, if you're speaking face to face, is probably a normal pause. Like if you're talking to your home and you're like, yeah, man, so what are you doing this weekend? And then it's right.
Definitely no next.
But when I'm recording, I'm looking up here at this timeline and I'm going, man, that was kind of a long pause. Now, something I've learned in the beginning, from the beginning, is I would cut this way too short. And I've gotten feedback on that early. Brian from Grinder TV told me, you're making it where if I make it like this, right, and I take out this entire little segment with my quick keys, and I hit play.
Definitely no necks were broken, right? Definitely no necks were broken.
It doesn't sound natural. It was like I barely finished speaking right here, and then boom, Mike's talking. So that's one thing that I've learned that I would tell people, don't. If you're going to edit your podcast, which I'm all about, make it where it sounds natural. Now, for many people, they wouldn't even take out any dead air, is what I would call it there.
No necks were broken, right? Definitely no necks were
now,
broken.
Now, if I'm editing, that to me sounded like a decent transition. But again, it's kind of, I've kind of gotten into a rhythm that when I'm editing, I know what little chunk to take out.
Were broken, right? Definitely no necks were broken.
And that's kind of how that goes. So I wanted to kind of share that. Now, again, because this is the new version of Audacity, I picked up some tips and tricks already. And when I look down here at your next thing is we've got our little jingle. Now, I do have access to a nice soundboard, but what I have found is when I do post-production stuff and I'm taking the audio that's already been done, it's easier for me to go in here and basically move this right to where, I ask Mike the question, all right, Mike, are you ready? Okay. So then what I'm able to do is I'm able to go up to this point. I'm able to put a split, and then I can put this right in that point. Okay. So, again, a lot of people always ask, is what you guys do scripted? It's definitely not scripted. What I do accomplish though by doing that is it allows for me not to have a soundboard, although I have a nice one and I have used it before. The main reason I don't is because of the way it exports the file. I'm going to see if that's a little different with the new Audacity, but the way it exports it's hard to explain. It made it tougher for me to edit. Okay. And because I learned and I could kind of do it with my eyes closed, I didn't want to change that. And I talked to a guy at SEMA last year that was into microphones. He was asking me what mics we use, and I explained, and he goes, oh, those are good mics. And I was talking to him about editing, and I said, I have more expensive tools and things that can make things easier, but I learned this other way. And he goes, yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. He's like, once you learn the way that you do something, it's just the way you're going to do it. Now, granted, with Audacity, I still have the old version. I always keep the old version on the computer. That way, if something's really wonky, and I've had this happen to me in the old days of Audacity, and it messes something up in my mind, I know I can jump back to the old version. So this 3.1.1 or whatever it is, it's so far, the few things I've done today, I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. But I'm going to, spend some more time with it and make sure, I feel comfortable. But then as we get into the guest audio, it basically stair steps. So I have to drag and drop it in here, and then the guest audio is going to be here. So then I have to transition it in. The hardest, and it's not even the hardest part, one of the biggest parts is just going back and editing it. Me personally, the way I am, I could never take an interview and go, you know what? I don't think we had any hiccups on it. Let me just export it and post it. I know people do that, and that's totally fine for what they do. I can't do that because I know there's some times where maybe I talked over them and they talked over me, and then we both stopped and then they started talking. That natural tendency to kind of get over, both of us talking over each other, I take that out, and then that way I stopped talking, the guest started talking. So hopefully that you guys kind of notice that and appreciate. I know oftentimes I've gotten a lot of good feedback where people say, I can tell this, not so much the sound quality, but the effort, the level of effort that's put in. So I wanted to show you guys that a little bit behind the scenes. But if you'd like these videos, I'll do more. I am also open to help people. I don't have a lot of extra time. I constantly am balancing, and I'll cover some stuff on episode 289 on some changes that we're going to make with OLP. But I highly encourage, if there's other people in the scene that want to do something. I know Billy Bob, I really tried to push him and say, hey, man, we loved your podcast. Keep it going. I did that with Diener. I said that at Mini Nats on stage, that I want to see the scene continue to flourish. And I know, like with the Custom Scene podcast and Mini Trucker Colt, or Mini Truck Colt, the LCD guys, there's a lot of good people out there. And I love listening to those podcasts. Frank and Brian are going to be another kind of step towards that evolution of more content. And believe me, those guys have been doing content way before I was, with their videos. I know Brian for sure, and he had the magazine and that type of thing. So again, a little bit of behind the scenes, might appreciate it. You might say, it's the boring side of it, but literally I have to focus every week and have a regimented schedule. We've been doing these now for 3.5 years, every single week. We didn't miss 1 week, and it's not easy to do, but I actually like doing it. So I think that's all I got. Again, this is kind of a behind the scenes. Check out ourlifestylepodcast.com if you want to buy some merch. The Time Machine stuff will be shipping out in a couple weeks. We appreciate all the support. And I'm going to keep the YouTube videos going. I'll keep the podcast going the best I can. And just want to say, we got ya. Stay on the rise. Peace.